Have you ever sat alone, staring at your phone, asking yourself, why did she disappear? One moment, she's all into you, smiling at your texts, calling you hers, giving you hope. Then, nothing, no message, no reason, just gone. Weeks pass, you rebuild your peace, you refocus your life, and then she returns, like nothing ever happened. No apology, no explanation, just a casual, hey. You read that text, and every part of you screams, what does this mean? What do I do now? You're not alone. This is a test, and how you respond will change your life. This isn't just about her. It's about you, your dignity, your self-worth, your values, your future. But most men, they fail. Today, you won't. Comment, never again, if you've ever been ghosted or hurt by someone who thought you'd still be there waiting. And stick with me to the end. This message will transform your life, not just your love life. Number 1. Why she disappeared. She disappeared not because you were boring or because she suddenly saw a flaw in you that made her question the entire connection, but because deep down you were stable and present in a world where chaos is romanticized, where men who provide peace are confused with those who bring passivity, and the ones who are always available are seen as dispensable. She vanished because in her world, the excitement of attention from many carries more weight than the consistency of loyalty from one. And even though your presence should have been the very thing she cherished, it became the thing she subconsciously resented because it made her reflect on the fact that she herself wasn't ready for something real. She wasn't emotionally equipped to reciprocate what you were giving freely, and because she didn't have the maturity to look you in the eye and say, I'm not ready, she chose the easy way out. She vanished, she ghosted, she slipped away without explanation, and in that disappearance, she sent a message not just to you, but to herself, confirming that she doesn't have to face consequences for emotional negligence, that as long as she remains the prize in the eyes of men, she can come and go as she pleases. And let me ask you something that might sting. How many times did you compromise your own standards just to keep the peace? How many times did you ignore that gut feeling when her words and actions stopped matching? How many times did you tell yourself she was just busy, just overwhelmed, just not ready to talk, when deep down you knew she was checking out and you didn't want to admit it, because that would mean facing the harsh truth that you were more committed to the idea of her than she ever was to the reality of you, and that feeling of betrayal you felt when the connection you invested in evaporated without closure, when her "I'm different" turned into the same pattern you swore you'd avoid, when the conversations went from deep to dry, from passionate to passive, from "you're the one" to unread messages. That pain was real, but what you must see now is that her disappearance was never really about you. It was about her unresolved desire for novelty, her thirst for control, her addiction to validation, and most painfully of all, her inability to sit still with something good without sabotaging it out of boredom or fear or emotional immaturity. And that's the part no one wants to say out loud, that some women will walk away from what's best for them just because they never learned how to value consistency, that they chase chaos under the illusion that it's passion, and they run from peace because it reminds them they have to grow. And here's where Stoic principles come in. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And when she disappeared, your first reaction may have been confusion or anger or heartbreak. But now your reaction must be discipline, clarity, and a commitment to never betray yourself for temporary affection again. Because what she did exposed something more important than her character. It exposed what you were willing to tolerate. It revealed how much of your self-worth was tied to her presence, and your healing begins when you write down the truths you ignored, when you confront the parts of you that felt being needed was the same as being loved, and you start shifting your mindset from "why did she leave me" to Why did I hold on to someone who showed me they were capable of disappearing without a word? And you start transforming when you accept that her leaving gave you the rarest opportunity of all, to see clearly, to detach, to build a version of yourself who no longer tolerates confusion as a love language. And that version of you doesn't check her profile, doesn't reread old messages, doesn't wait for closure, because he understands that the very act of disappearing without respect is closure in itself. And the day you stop trying to understand people who never tried to understand you, the day you stop romanticizing pain as proof of love, the day you choose inner peace over external validation, that is the day you stop attracting runners and start attracting equals. Not because you changed for them, but because you finally saw yourself as someone worth protecting. And while she may have thought leaving would put you in limbo, what she didn't realize is that she created space for you to evolve into a man who would never again beg for what should be freely given: respect, effort, truth. Number 2, why she's back now. She's back not because she's realized your worth in some moment of pure reflection and heartfelt change, but because the world she left you for didn't offer her what she thought it would, because the attention she chased ran dry, the excitement faded, the so-called options weren't real contenders, they were distractions. And when the high wore off and the emptiness came back, when the validation stopped flooding in like it used to, when the conversations became surface level and the attention was cheap and temporary, that's when you came to mind, not because of love, but because of memory, because you represented something she took for granted: stability, truth, care, presence, things she didn't value when she had them, but started craving again the moment she lost them. And now she's knocking again, casually, without apology, with a smiley face and a "Hey stranger," as if she didn't disappear without a word. And she's watching closely, carefully, to see if the door is still open, because her ego is starving, and you were once the place she could always go for nourishment. But the question is, are you still that man? Are you still available for the woman who walked out on you without looking back? Because make no mistake, this isn't love returning. It's entitlement. It's a test. It's her seeing if her choices have no consequences. And most men fail this test because they mistake her return for redemption, when really it's a rerun. The same pattern playing again, this time just delayed. And if you open that door too quickly, if you welcome her without requiring truth, without demanding growth, without even asking the hard questions, you are not being forgiving, you are being forgettable. Because what she sees in that moment is a man who places his need for connection above his need for self-respect. And she may smile, and she may say she missed you, but what she's really saying is, she missed how easily you gave, how readily you loved, how little she had to work for your devotion. And if you offer that again, without any sign of change on her part, you will once again become the backup plan she runs to when her latest thrill disappoints her. And this is where Stoicism becomes more than a philosophy. It becomes survival, because when Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events," realize this, and you will find strength. He was preparing you for moments exactly like this. Moments where someone you once loved comes back not out of respect, but out of need. Not because they grew, but because their distractions failed. And your strength lies in seeing the situation clearly and acting with intention, not emotion. Because reacting emotionally to a situation that demands principle is how you lose your progress. And this time, you've grown too much to go back. And yes, it's tempting. Yes, the nostalgia is powerful. But memory without growth is manipulation. And you owe it to yourself to stop recycling old pain just because it's dressed in new packaging. So you ask the questions. Why now? What changed? What work has she done on herself? And most importantly, why didn't she choose to stay when you offered your best the first time? And if she can't answer those with clarity and accountability, she is not returning with love. She is returning with expectation. and you are under no obligation to meet it, because your peace is no longer for sale at the price of temporary affection, and you are not obligated to respond to a message just because it was sent, especially not when that message is a test of your emotional memory, a test to see if you still need her validation more than your own clarity. And if you pass this test, if you hold the line, if you maintain the boundary, you don't just teach her a lesson, you teach yourself that you are finally free, because freedom isn't walking away from her, it's walking toward yourself. It's choosing the version of you that no longer begs to be seen, that no longer sacrifices peace for attention, that no longer waits for the person who left to find the wisdom to return. And in that choice, you don't just reclaim your power. You become the man who no longer needs to be chosen to feel worthy, because he has already chosen himself. She'll try to come back again, but this time you'll know exactly what to do. If you've ever questioned whether you were too forgiving, too available, too patient with someone who didn't value you, then the Stoic Relationship Blueprint is the guide you've been waiting for. It answers the questions you've asked in silence. Why did she leave? Why is she back? What should I do now? And more importantly, it hands you the tools to reclaim your peace, set powerful standards, and never fall for the same cycle again. This isn't just a book, it's a weapon, a shield, a reset button. Once it's yours forever. You'll always have access to this knowledge, this clarity, this roadmap back to yourself. The link is in the comments. Don't wait for another heartbreak to wake you up. Make the decision now that you'll never be caught off guard again. Number 3. The ego test. This isn't a message, it's a test. When she comes back after vanishing without a trace, without explanation, without remorse, and you see her name light up your screen again, that's not a romantic gesture. That's a calculated move to see if you're still available on demand, if you're still emotionally invested, if you still care enough to answer immediately, if your self-respect has an expiration date. And most men don't see it for what it is, because they're too emotionally entangled in the fantasy of what used to be, not the reality of what is. They mistake her return as a sign of maturity, when it's more often just curiosity or convenience or boredom or loneliness. And in that moment, you are not receiving an olive branch. You are being weighed, and the scale is her ego asking, do I still have access to him without doing the work? And if you answer yes, if you reply eagerly, if you act as though the past never happened, you've failed the test, not because you're a bad man, but because you've allowed yourself to be emotionally manipulated by someone who walked away from your presence when it no longer served her needs, and now returns not to heal, but to re-establish dominance in your emotional world. Because women know, whether consciously or subconsciously, that a man's attention is a resource, and once they lose consistent access to it, they want to see if they can reclaim it without investment. And the most dangerous lie you can tell yourself in this moment is that this is a second chance at love, when it is usually a second chance at being used. And this is where discipline must replace desire, where your emotional control must override the dopamine response of seeing her name again. Because this test is not about what she says, it's about what you allow, and the man who has no standards will always fall for the same pattern, wrapped in different timing. So now ask yourself, why did she come back with no apology? Why did she show up with casual words after a disrespectful absence? What does she expect from you now? Validation, comfort, forgiveness, or attention? And how you respond isn't just about her. It's about the version of yourself you've built since she left, because the man who still needs her approval will respond from hope, but the man who has reclaimed his peace will respond from clarity, and clarity tells you this: anyone who leaves without care should not return without consequence. And if you make yourself easy to return to, you've told her she never needs to grow to keep you, and that kind of man is not respected, not admired, not valued, He is used, dismissed, and recycled whenever she needs a temporary fix for her emotional hunger, so you must make a choice. Do you pass this test by standing firm in your standards, by holding her accountable, by asking what she's done to earn your energy again? Or do you fail it by going back to the man you were when she left, uncertain, forgiving too quickly, desperate for her attention? Because every time you fail this test, you don't just lose her again, you lose more of yourself. Your self-respect gets chipped away, your emotional foundation weakens, and you train her to believe that no matter how badly she disrespects you, you'll still be there. And if that's the message you send, you can't blame her for coming and going at will, because you've told her through your actions that your value is flexible, your standards are negotiable, and your heart is open to being toyed with indefinitely. But if you pass this test, if you hold the line, if you demand growth, if you ask the hard questions and require real accountability, then you teach her, and yourself, that you are not a man to be tested, you are a man to be respected. Number 4. She sees you as a backup. She doesn't see you as her partner, her future, her equal. She sees you as a backup, as the reliable plan B, the safety net she can fall into when life doesn't go the way she hoped. And this is one of the most brutal truths you will ever face. Not because it's rare, but because it's so common that most men never even realize it until they're in the middle of being used, recycled, and discarded all over again. And if you don't understand this dynamic, you'll spend your life misreading loyalty for love, interpreting her return as redemption, when in reality it's convenience. And you must ask yourself, what has she truly shown you that says you're her first choice? Not what she says when she's lonely, not the texts she sends when she's bored, not the way she touches your arm when she's between flings, but her actions, her effort, her consistency when she had you. Because women who see you as the man they want for real don't disappear when new options appear. They don't ghost you when attention is abundant, and they definitely don't try to slide back into your life without apology. Once those distractions are gone, and if you don't see the signs, you will mistake utility for connection. You will confuse her need for validation with her desire for you, and before you know it, you're her emotional sponge, absorbing her pain, fixing her mess, rebuilding her ego after every failed situationship. And the worst part is that she'll never respect you for it, because no one respects their fallback. No one falls in love with their cushion. And if you make yourself available to her in that way, you train her to believe that you are the man she can always come back to, not because she loves you, but because she knows you'll always be there. And this is why you must stop romanticizing her return. Stop imagining that this is the beginning of something meaningful, when it's usually just the restart of a pattern where you are the supplier of comfort while someone else gets her commitment. And once you recognize that she only calls you when her world is falling apart, once you see that she only wants to talk when the people she chose fail her, once you feel the emptiness in her affection when she needs you versus when she desires you, then you'll finally be able to step back and ask, do I want to be someone's afterthought? Do I want to be the emotional janitor for someone who left me for someone else's attention? And when the answer is no, because deep down it always is, you will start to reclaim your place in the world, not as someone's second choice, but as someone's only choice. And that begins by no longer answering the late-night text, no longer picking up the pieces of her bad decisions, no longer giving her the emotional validation she lost elsewhere. Because when you stop letting her use you for emotional survival, you force her to face herself, and more importantly, you allow yourself to finally move on from someone who never truly valued you in the first place. And that is not bitterness, that is clarity, and clarity is what sets you free. Number 5. How weak men react. Weak men react with emotion, with hope, with desperation disguised as forgiveness, because when she returns, casually, unapologetically, they don't see the pattern, they see the possibility. And in doing so, they walk straight into the trap of their own emotional fantasy, because instead of remembering the pain of being discarded, instead of honoring the dignity they lost when they were ignored, instead of recognizing that love without respect is just dependency, they rush to reply, they get excited, they tell their friends, "She's back," like it's some victory. And in that moment, they reveal a truth about themselves they're not even aware of, that they are still placing their worth in someone else's validation, that they haven't grown, that they haven't healed. And that's exactly what she's testing for, because when she vanished, she was betting on one thing, that you'd still be emotionally available when she got bored of whatever pulled her away. And if you reply with warmth, if you act like nothing happened, if you pretend that abandonment is just part of dating now, you tell her everything she needs to know, that she can disrespect you and still be welcome back, that you'll sacrifice your dignity for the idea of love, that you haven't built anything in her absence except a deeper attachment to someone who never deserved you in the first place. And this is what separates weak men from strong ones. Not how much they feel, but how they act on those feelings. Because the weak man will justify her behavior. He'll say, "She was confused," or "She needed space," or "Maybe she was scared." And all of those excuses are just masks for one thing: fear. Fear of being alone, fear of never finding someone else, fear that this was his only chance at something real. And when you operate from fear, you give power to those who hurt you. You teach people that your boundaries are negotiable if they're attractive enough, if they cry hard enough, if they just say the right words at the right time, and you keep falling into the same cycle, not because of her, but because of you. Because you keep choosing comfort over character, fantasy over fact, weakness over wisdom. But the man who has evolved, the man who has built himself in the dark, who has sat with the pain and turned it into power, he doesn't react, he responds. And that response is never emotional. It is measured, it is grounded, it is clear. You don't get access to me just because you want it. You get access because you've earned it. And if she hasn't earned it, with truth, with change, with consistency, then her presence is a threat to your peace, not a reward for your patience. And the man who understands this will never again be manipulated by nostalgia, by loneliness, by the illusion of love that shows up only when it's convenient. And in that understanding, he becomes untouchable. Number 6. What high-value men do. The man she can't manipulate is the man who mastered himself. And when she comes back acting like nothing happened, laughing at your memes again, sending a photo of her coffee like you were just talking yesterday, you will only have two responses. Either you slip back into being the same man who waited for her, or you show her you're no longer him. And what separates high-value men from the masses isn't how much they earn or how good they look. It's how firmly they refuse to entertain people who cost them peace without paying them respect. Because when a woman disappears and then reappears without a single word of truth, without acknowledging how she disrespected the connection, without accountability, it's a test of your evolution. It's her seeing if your value is still available at yesterday's price. And most men fold because they never learned to sit with the void. They never developed the patience to let a loss teach them discipline. But the man who has done the work, who spent the night she was gone building his purpose, getting stronger, getting focused, and rewriting the rules of who has access to him, that man doesn't just think twice before letting someone back in. He makes them climb to where he is now. Because he knows what it took to rebuild himself from the disappointment. He remembers the pit in his stomach when she ignored his messages, the way he kept checking his phone like a lost boy hoping to be chosen again. But that boy became a man not by chance, but by decision, by saying, "Never again," by refusing to allow his value to be determined by someone else's whims. And that man doesn't chase closure. He creates it. He doesn't beg for explanations. He demands truth or walks without a word. He doesn't get angry when she returns. He gets clearer because he understands this. Love without respect is manipulation in disguise, and you can't demand both love and boundaries if you don't enforce consequences. So when she shows up with that flirty energy, that passive reach out, that calculated re-entry, the high-value man doesn't reward it, he challenges it, not with games, but with clarity, with questions that reveal whether she grew or just got bored. And if she can't answer why she left or what changed, if she dodges and deflects and plays victim, he doesn't scold her or try to convince her to be better. He simply doesn't engage, because engagement without standards is an invitation to repeat pain. And pain is a lesson you only need once if you learn it properly. So he measures her return not by the butterflies in his stomach, but by the substance in her effort. And unless she comes back transformed, honest, and willing to own every action, she doesn't get another chance, because he knows what it costs to love without boundaries, and he will never pay that price again. Number 7. The power of indifference. The most dangerous man is not the one who hates you or loves you, but the one who feels nothing. And that is where you must live, in the place where your emotions don't make decisions for you, where her texts don't create adrenaline, where her return doesn't awaken hope, because when you reach true indifference, she no longer controls you with her presence or absence. She becomes irrelevant to your emotional state, and this isn't about pretending not to care. It's about actually building a life so full, so rooted in purpose, so grounded in your own discipline and vision, that someone coming back from the past doesn't feel like a rescue. It feels like a distraction, and indifference is not bitterness, it's clarity. It's the understanding that someone who left without warning, who treated your heart like an option, does not get the privilege of occupying your mind space anymore, because every time you let her back in without evaluation, you teach yourself that your worth is dependent on being chosen, and indifference breaks that cycle. It says, I'm not here to be liked, I'm here to be respected. And respect doesn't beg for attention, it doesn't chase after ghosts, it doesn't wait by the phone. It creates a reality so powerful that anyone who exits it knows they'll never find that kind of presence again. And when you become indifferent, you become free. Because you no longer measure your identity by who wants to stay or who's interested today. You measure it by how consistent you are in your own values, how disciplined you are in who you let access your time, your energy, your body. And when she comes back with that fake concern, that familiar flattery, that passive interest, you feel nothing. Not because you're cold, but because you've healed, you've grown, you've turned inward and discovered that the man who knows who he is doesn't need anyone to validate it. And if she isn't matching your energy with effort, if she isn't walking in with honesty and responsibility, if she's just testing the waters to see if you're still warm, your indifference becomes your protection, your defense against manipulation, because she can't win games you're no longer playing, and the man who lives by principle doesn't react to temptation. He filters it through his standards, and unless she's bringing something real, he stays focused on his mission, because he finally understands that peace is not found in her return, it's found in his refusal to let chaos back in. Number 8. When to walk away. There is a moment where a man must look at the woman he once would have done anything for and say, I'm done. Not out of hate, not out of anger, but out of complete clarity. Because when she comes back like nothing happened, when she expects to pick up where she left off without addressing the disrespect, without taking ownership, without even pausing to acknowledge how she made you feel, you have to realize this. If you accept her again without change, you are not giving love, you are betraying yourself. And walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom, because sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is let go of someone who didn't care enough to stay, someone who didn't fight when you were willing to, Someone who made you feel like a burden when all you wanted was connection. And that kind of woman, the one who disappears and reappears without growth, is not here for your healing. She's here for your energy, for your validation, for your reassurance. And the minute you stop providing that, she's gone again. And this is why you must walk away, not just from her, but from the part of you that thought being chosen meant being worthy. Because you were already worthy, even when she didn't see it, especially when she didn't see it. And walking away is the final act of love. For yourself, it's saying, I will no longer entertain the people who couldn't appreciate me when I was giving them everything. And that moment is not a loss, it's a liberation, because the man who can walk away is the man who cannot be broken. He doesn't need closure to move forward. He doesn't need apologies to find peace. He just needs to remember who he is and what he deserves. And walking away isn't about making her regret it. It's about reclaiming the time you spent waiting, the energy you spent hoping, the dignity you lost when you begged for her attention, and when you finally stopped looking back, when you stopped checking her stories, when you stop analyzing her messages for hidden meanings. You begin the real journey, the one where you build a life that doesn't require anyone's validation to feel complete, and she will notice, she will feel the shift, she will reach out again, but this time you won't feel that same ache. You won't feel that same pull because you've already walked away internally. And the final walk is just a formality. And when that day comes, when you no longer need her to understand your value for you to stand in it, you will have won, not just over her, but over the version of yourself who once believed that love without respect was enough. You've been through enough. You've given chances to people who didn't deserve access. You've begged for clarity from someone who knew exactly what they were doing. No more. If you're tired of repeating the same emotional cycles, if you're done being the man who gets hurt and confused and blamed for simply caring too deeply, the Stoic relationship blueprint will be your final turning point. This is the truth they never wanted you to hear. This is the emotional armor they hoped you'd never wear. Inside, you'll learn how to never fall for manipulation again, how to master your emotions without losing your heart, and how to lead in love without losing yourself. It's in the comments. It's yours forever. Grab it now before another round of regret finds you. Comment, I choose power, if you're ready to reclaim your peace and protect your future. Like this video if it hits something deep. Subscribe so this message finds the next man before it's too late.